Hi, my name is Jeff and welcome back to my workshop. We are going to be continuing work on the Gettelman Brewing Company refrigerated car from Accurail. This is where we're going to get the car by the end of the episode. Last episode we got the couplers on. Now we're going to work on the trucks. We're going to start by painting the mainsprings with Vallejo leather. Just need a drop of it and a micro brush to do this. And just put a little bit of paint on the end of the micro brush, and then I can just touch it to the springs on the truck to give it just a little bit of rusty color. We'll add more rust and weathering when we weather the car with pan pastels later in this video. But for now, this just gets those springs colored. As you can see, the paint will just kind of flow onto the springs if you just touch it to them. It doesn't take much. Now that the paint has dried, we can take the screws out of the underframe and install the trucks. Want to make sure you get these facing right side up. Remember that you're looking at the bottom of the car, so you want the top of the truck down, which I am not doing here. So flip it over. Get the screw and screw that into place. We want to make sure as we're doing this that we leave the truck so that it spins freely on the axle. If it doesn't, loosen it up just a little bit. And one of the trucks you want to have some side-to-side play, the other just spinning. This way you have 3 points of contact as you go over uneven track, and that'll help keep the car rolling smoothly and on the rails. Okay, with the trucks attached, we're going to bring in a piece of track and our Katy height gauge and get that set up. And now we can check to make sure that the couplers are at the correct height on the car. This side looks good. Yeah. This side is a little bit low, so we'll have to correct that. You can see the trip pin is hitting the bottom of the gauge, and the coupler heads are a little bit low. It's hard to see at this angle, but they are just a hair low. So the easy way to fix that is to remove the truck and put in a Katy red washer, which is 0.015 inches thick, so 15 thousandths of an inch. And the washer just slides over the kingpin and the bolster. Just push it down, then you can put the truck on top and screw it back in place. Adjust that coupler as well while we're at it. Make sure it's moving smoothly. And the coupler's good. Now we can double check the car against the height gauge. And that has done the trick. As you can see, it lines up perfectly now. So with that done, now we're going to attach the weight. I like to use Walther's glue for that, because that will hold and stay in place permanently. So find the center positions of it and make notes of where that's going to go. And then I apply glue to the bottom of the weight, as well as the floor of the car. Just put a bead down on the car. One thing with glue is once it starts to flow, it tends to want to keep flowing. So you kind of got to play with it a little bit just to get it to stop. And we'll spread some on the floor of the car. Now with the glue applied, I want to spread this out so I have a nice thin layer on both the car floor and on the weight. And then we're going to let this dry. Glue is a contact cement, so once we get it on, it will stick to itself, make a nice permanent stick, but we do want to get a nice thin layer on here. Any excess we can lift off and add to the car, which has a really thin coat, a little too thin, so you can use a little bit more. Now we're just going to give it 2 minutes to let it dry, and then we'll be able to set the weight in place. So thanks to the magic of editing, my 2 minutes has passed, and now I can position the weight one end where it needs to go on this side, and then slip the other in place. I've got just a few seconds to work with it. And put it down, press it in place so it holds. I'm now going to give the time for the solvents in the glue to completely evaporate. And once that's done, we'll assemble the car. Again, thanks to the magic of editing, we can continue working. We'll start by weighing the car. This came out at 5.8 ounces. The car is approximately 5 3/4 inches in length. You can see I'm measuring it here. The NMRA standard is 1 ounce of weight in HO scale plus a ½ ounce for every inch of length. So at 5 3/4, we are 2.5, about 3, about 2.75, 2.8 ounces plus 1, so 3.8, which is where we're at. So this is good. Now check for find the B end, which is where the brake platform is on the shell, and then position the underframe with the B end, and that's where the brake cylinder points to. Get that placed, and the car is assembled and ready for weathering. To weather, I'm using pan pastels. I have an assortment of rust browns, rust colors, and grays that I'll be using. I'm going to start by using a burnt umber shade, which is a light, it's almost a white tan. And just kind of use a dry brush technique with the sponge, so brush most of it off and then run it down the sides, and it will fade the lettering and give just a little bit of a dirt color to the car. Flip the car around, do the same thing on the other side. Then we're going to use a brown to kind of fade the ends and also the roofs. Get some light gray on the roof walk. Give that a nice wood look. Use a little dark gray along the ribs and dab down to the roof walk to give it some texture. A little bit of a dark brown. Just going to do this along the ribs to give it some create some shadow effect. And also to create some rust colors streaking down the sides of the car. And I can just kind of smear it out with my finger if I need to, or with part of the brush. And the hardware on the door just gets a touch of that oxide red. And with the second side done, we can bring in some dark gray and just hit the ladders and grab irons to kind of give them some depth. Create shadows on the sides, and we're going to do that on the ends as well. some medium gray in here, again to create that shadow. Get some rust on the ice hatches, on the hardware, and a little bit of dirt above the trucks where it would get splattered up as the car moves along the side, and on the trucks themselves. The pan pastels on, that's it. It doesn't need, the pan pastels stick well to a matte coat, so it doesn't need a clear coat. And that puts the car done and ready for service. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If so, please give it a big thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe to see my next project. Thank you for joining me in my workshop, and hope you've enjoyed this.